Okay, ladies and gentlemen of the Agriculture and Consumer Affairs Committee, I'd like to call this committee to order this morning. I've got 8:02, so we got a lot on the agenda this morning. It is day 19, so we're almost to the halfway point, and things are picking up. And as you can see, the bills landed in this committee. So to start off the morning, I'd like to ask Representative Donahue to open us up in a word of prayer.
Thank you, Chairman. Heavenly Father, we come to you today and we thank you for loving us. We just pray that you watch over each one of our family members as we're away, that you give them protection and watch over us. Help us to make decisions, Lord, that we need to do for the best of Georgia. And we just lift you up and thank you for loving us. We just give you the praise and the glory in Jesus' name, amen.
Okay. Again, I think we'll get right on to the agenda. HB 158, Representative Franklin. This is your second trip here with this bill. Please, table mic's yours.
Yes, sir. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to share again, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. This is HB 158, the LC 442992S. And again, this is just a bill to kind of attempt to consolidate and make our government more transparent and easier to function. But the goal here is to be able to get the trade names in Georgia whenever they're establishing the trade names or doing business as. They're currently filed within each county in Georgia, and we have about 159 counties. So when you're looking up to try to discover where these are, you have to go to every single county currently. What this bill does is puts the process of after they put it into the county to allow it to go to the Georgia Superior Court Clerk's corporate authority. So it's a one single place that people can go to find that and look for it instead of having to go to each and every one of them. Other than that, it doesn't really change anything in the process. The clerks still get paid for what they do for the administration part of it, and it's just one more thing where they put it in there. So basically, that's the bill, Mr. Chairman, and I'm welcome to take any questions as needed.
You do have a question, 26. Who is that? Chairman Corbett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Representative Lehman. Is there somebody here with the Secretary of State's office that would care to comment on this at all?
Well, it doesn't go to the Secretary of State.
It does not? Okay.
But there is, Greg Allen is here with the Forsyth County Superior Court. He's welcome to take any questions if you want.
Thank you.
Just state your name a little bit.
I'm Greg Allen, Clerk of Superior Court in Forsyth County. I'm ready for any questions.
I think Chairman Corbett, could you tell us, this committee, a little bit how this would work differently than what it's done now?
Yes, sir. It would. The Clerk's Authority, the Georgia Superior Court Clerks Cooperative Authority, will have a database. All the clerks will send the trade name registrations to the authority. So a person will be able to go to the authority's website, choose the county they're looking for, and find the trade and type in the trade name and find it. Or they can be able to type in the trade name and find it in any county where it may be registered, rather than having to go to each individual.
Okay, who is going to, Secretary of State will set up this database?
No, the Clerk's Authority will.
Oh, they will.
They already have a website. They already have a way to look up real estate, anything else filed with us. This will just add to what we already offer.
Carter. You got another question. Representative Carter.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairman. What I guess what I need to understand is this the clerk of courts who will be handling this in the local counties? Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and so you're saying that they currently have the capability to upload this information to the database request, or is that going to be something additional that they're going to have to do? Is there some technology involved? And then what is the time frame, and what is the consequence if it doesn't happen? Because we're giving work to the clerk of court, and I can imagine at least one of the three that I have will ask me.
Right, and I've probably talked to them about it. It will actually be, the clerks have been doing this since 1937. It's always been a duty of the clerk of court to do this. The only thing we're doing now is it'll be recorded electronically, and we will be able to send that to the clerk's authority. And we've already got it pipelined to the clerk's authority, so there's no additional technology, no additional cost. It's just taking it from a paper process only in our office electronically to share to the clerk's authority.
Thank you.
Representative Franklin, let's be sure what bill number we're working off of. Could you tell us?
It's LC 442992S.
That is not what is in our folder.
Oh, it's not.
Okay. That is not what's got copied and put on our folder. I think, what is the difference in this bill and your sub?
Well,
What changes were made? I think we're gonna have to delay this till the committee gets the right language in front of them. I think, we have LC 442886, which is not your sub.
I don't know why that would be. I think we've only made one adjustment to it, and the adjustment really came from the Superior Court that made it. So I don't know why there would be an additional information in there. Nothing was really, because my originally had, it was drastically different. It had it going to the Secretary of State. This one has not. We've only made one change.
Let's pause on this, if we could, until everybody gets a copy of it. Maybe before the end of this meeting or subsequent meeting, we could try to get the correct language in front of the committee.
Sure. No.
I'm sorry for the mistake not getting the sub printed.
No problem.
If you could hang around for a while, my Kimberly is going to try to help you with that.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Is Representative Camp here? All right. Let's delay that, and let's go to Chairman Hagan. Would you be ready to present HB 398?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee, and I hope y'all will forgive me. I have just realized that I put my contacts in the wrong eyes this morning, and I am flying pretty much blind right now, so I'm going to do the best I can. I got here okay. Y'all all look great today.
Well, it's kind of deja vu to me. Has this committee seen this bill before?
Yes, in fact, last year, this bill passed overwhelmingly out of the House. So it, as many great bills do, have to come back again because they did not make it through the Senate process. But so I'm happy to tell you as much or as little about this bill if you like. I know we have some new members who were not here last year. But what this bill does is it opens up opportunities for our cottage food operators to expand their small businesses. And that's really important to a lot of people. We have found from the Department of Ag that most of our districts, if not all, have got cottage food operators in them. This is a great way for people to start a business, try it out before they invest in a commercial kitchen, and just see if their product is going to be something that people are going to want. So it is currently administered by the Department of Agriculture as they get a license to operate. And right now, they can only sell their products to the consumer directly. So they make it, they can sell it to you, that's it. What we were trying to do with this bill is open up those opportunities to them so that they could sell to a third party, or so the third party vendor could sell those products like a retail store, a grocery store, or a restaurant. We found that there's a lot of demand for these products. People are very interested in homegrown products, Georgia-grown products, and they want to get these products into the hands of as many people as they can. So that is what we're doing with this bill, is just opening up to another market stream for these licensed cottage food operators. I can keep talking about it, or I can just answer some questions. I love this program. I think it's great small business policy and encourages entrepreneurship. So,
Okay.
how would you like for me to proceed with this?
Well,
Mr.
great,
Chairman?
thank you. I was trying to get in touch to represent Camp. You do have one question. I see, I assume the Department of Ag is good with this.
They are. I work
Nobody's
very
here to
closely with
speak
them.
to it from them, but.
No, I worked very closely with them last year to get
Right.
this right for them, and they're happy with it.
Okay, thank you. You do have one question. Representative Taylor.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I love the idea. The concept is awesome, but where's the oversight? You're dealing with food products and home kitchens where there are animals, children. Where is the oversight? in
It
this
stays
bill?
where it is currently. This bill doesn't change that. It's with the Department of Agriculture. They reserve the right to go in and inspect if they feel like they need to.
That concerns me.
This bill doesn't change what's already in place.
And, okay.
Yeah.
And
There's a training program that they do.
okay.
They renew their license every year. So the Department of Agriculture knows who these producers are, and they're in the system. They know who they are.
So let me, if I may, Mr. Chairman. I don't know how many inspectors we may have under the Agriculture Department. However, we have 159 counties, and I'm a little concerned as to how that would pan out, getting the inspections on a regular routine basis, such as restaurants.
Right, they're definitely not inspected like a restaurant is. It's a different product, and they have to be labeled that way. In fact, in the bill, we go through specifically how these products have to be labeled, so that if people are purchasing them in a store or a restaurant, that they know that it's a cottage food product, and that they have not been
FDA
inspected
approved.
like a restaurant would be.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Representative Osteen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are we talking about food, like they prepare casseroles?
No, it's very.
I was
They are
trying to flip through that.
non-potentially hazardous foods only. So, and can't really read this very well,
No,
but if you
sorry.
look on page 2, starting with line 28, or 29, it defines what non-potentially hazardous foods are. So we're only talking about those very specific things that are not
That they would not
known
need
to
to have.
grow those toxic microorganisms in most situations.
So they wouldn't have to have a serve-safe course to do this.
They may do that as part of their licensing and online training, but again, that's through the Department of Ag, and that's how they currently do it. We're talking about things like breads, rolls, biscuits, cakes, but they can't be like a high moisture content where they could potentially grow bacteria. Yeah.
That was,
Yeah,
You answered the
it's really
question.
closely defined what they can actually produce.
thank you.
Got one more question. Representative Donahue.
Do they have to wear pink while they're performing?
No, that's optional.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Huddleston.
Thank you for the bill. I had a quick question. Basically, like you just mentioned, starting on line 29 of all the specific food products that would be listed, and you had dried fruits and dried herbs, which I would assume would be dehydrated. I actually had a constituent ask me last night, would a lot of the freeze-dried foods that's kind of new, and would this be considered in it also? Because he had told me that it had been told to them that it was not.
That it was not? That's a good
Free.
question, and I do not know the answer to that, but I could find out from.
Yeah, and I think because I've just
Department
learned
of
about it, like I said, within the
Yeah.
last year, freeze-dried. But that would be, like with dried fruits and dried herbs, I would
Yeah.
assume be dehydrated, but freeze dried.
Yeah,
Maybe.
freeze dried, I'm not sure.
That's
And,
right.
and they're definitely not listed here.
That's correct.
So I wouldn't be shocked if they were not included in that.
All right, thank you.
Chairman Corbett.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for bringing the bill at the proper time. I'd like to make a motion.
Are there any other questions? Bill that this committee is again saw last year, passed did it pass the House?
It did.
Passed the House. So, I would entertain a motion, Chairman
pass.
Corbett. Got a motion, second. Got a second. Any other discussion or questions on this bill?
Why did the Senate, why the Senate didn't? Because we did pass this bill last year. And
It
made
passed
pretty well.
unanimously out of Senate Ag Committee. It did not get called out of rolls.
Okay,
Senate rules
thank
last
you.
year.
As many good
Right.
House bills
Good
did
bills.
last year. So, welcome to the club.
Yes.
So we have a motion, second. Any other questions? All in favor of do pass, say aye. Opposed? Had no opposed, motion passes, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Committee.
Let's see, we're on LC 442976.
That's right.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Good.
That looks good to me.
All right. I see Representative Camp came in, but why don't you just wait a minute, get your thoughts together, and we'll Representative Jenkins. So you want to present your bill for the first time here? All right, we're on LC 443031, House Bill 413.
Yes, sir.
It's all yours.
All right. Mr. Chairman, I appreciate you having me this morning, members of the committee. I'm here today to present House Bill 413 to you. This bill seeks to amend Chapter 1 of Title 2 of the Official Code of Georgia. The code section that we are amending, essentially, it prohibits local governments from regulating agricultural practices. It essentially doesn't allow them to regulate crop management, livestock, animal husbandry, and such as that. And from time to time, the General Assembly in the past has had to amend this code section to further define that, so there isn't any confusion. And that's essentially what this is. So today we're going to talk about portable sawmill operations, and we're doing this issue primarily is more of an urban agricultural issue. And what we're doing is that this bill defines portable sawmill operations as an agricultural practice because the production of timber is an agricultural practice, and lumber is regulated by the Department of Agriculture. So what this bill seeks to do is it defines what a portable sawmill is, and the language is in there. Let's see here on line 22. It starts, and essentially it just says something has a trailer hitch that has wheels, can be moved around. The companies that sell sawmills, they have agricultural and industrial models. These are their agricultural models, is typically what this is. And this essentially just protects a farmer to be able to saw logs on agriculturally zoned land. And regardless of where the logs come from, as long as they're doing it with a portable mill. So the product that is typically produced is it's small product. It's typically hardwood, although it can be softwoods. The lumber that is milled is, I would call, waste. It's not able to go into the supply chain for a commercial mill. If you got a timber operation, I mean, anything less than 20 acres is not harvestable. So this stuff would go in a burn pile or a commercial landfill if it wasn't processed. And so this will basically allow us to create a product and keep this stuff out of our landfills and out of the air we breathe. A constituent that brought this bill is a farmer in Metro Atlanta, and a couple of his customers. He's got an Amazon facility went in and they wanted office furniture out of the wood they cut down to build it. Kennesaw State University, I believe it was storm damage. They wanted milled into furnishings for their school. So that's kind of how this goes. It is primarily an urban ag bill. I don't really see this issue in rural Georgia, but our more urban farms are the ones that are running into this, and it's kind of a part of a greater effort that we all need to think about how we can protect the various income streams of small farmers. The urban farm is typically a small farm, and one constant with small farms is they all require multiple income streams. You know, we have chicken houses, event centers, agritourism. We even studied our rivers and streams last year and learned North Georgia, they actually have fishing as an income stream. And this is just another one of those income streams that keeps our small farms viable. These small farmers are the custodians of our green space in urban areas, so they're very important to us, and we need to do what we can to keep them around. Stand for your questions.
Thank you for bringing this bill. I got a question, Representative Carter.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning.
Good morning.
First, I'd like to say that I support urban farmers. I support farming. But this bill concerns me when you're wanting to remove local control from local jurisdictions that know the communities better than we do here. And so we're about to open a door that we may need to slow walk and think this through, especially as we're talking about urban farming. And I can tell you, even though I live in Metro Atlanta, I live in a little town that's a square mile, and we've had to address similar issues with livestock. So I just really want you to kind of think about, understand what you're attempting to do, but tying the hands of local government, I don't think that's what we want to do, especially in urban areas, because I could literally have something across the street from my front yard.
So to answer your question, you actually can't. So what we're doing is local governments have zoning authority, and that is absolute in the Constitution of Georgia, and we're not affecting that. So this applies to agricultural zone land. So if a community doesn't want farming somewhere, all they have to do is change the zoning, or it's not zoned. So you can't have livestock in a residential area, I don't think, anywhere. And I know there's a lot of laws on that, but typically agricultural zoned properties has a minimum acreage requirement, and that varies from place to place, but that's completely up to the local authorities to decide what that acreage is and where that property is. But if they designate zoning for farming, then this just allows farming to occur there.
Representative Carter, have you got another question?
I hear what you're saying. But there is some potential that I just want to caution us, even, if there's some zoning in place, and we can't predict everything. Literally, there are some things that happen in my little town that you just could not have predicted, right? And yes, they can control zoning, but to change a zoning in the middle of a request, you put yourself in a legal situation. So that's why I'm saying, let's really think about this. And I don't know how many people in the urban area, metro, or what we're considering urban, that we are trying to pass legislation that you're saying is urban farming, that maybe we can really think about. I'm not saying not do anything, but maybe think through how this is going to affect people in small towns in big cities.
Yeah.
All right.
And we put a lot of thought into that. And I'll tell you, one of the issues that was brought, there was a fellow on 250 acres of land, zoned agriculture, that couldn't run a mill on that land because they said it was industrial, and he had to move to basically an industrial park to do it. So that's what we're addressing here. And again, the acreage requirements for agriculture is usually 20. I've heard it be smaller, but normally I've heard 20 acres. So we're not talking about something at the end of a cul-de-sac here. These are farms. And again, if a local government has opened up their zoning to something that's, that perhaps is too small to be a farm, that's something within their right to look at. But also on a farm, you make hay. I mean, and my hay cutter just absolutely screams. And I think a lot of that's this noise, that they're combating noise. They don't want noise. But farming is loud, and it smells bad, and things like that. And then they certainly have the authority to determine where they want farming to occur. But the state of Georgia, holds the authority to manage agricultural practices, and we don't delegate that.
Representative Jenkins is sawing logs, which is what this addresses. Is that considered agricultural practices?
Well, it has not been specifically addressed until now in Georgia code, and this essentially will say if you're doing it with a portable sawmill on a agricultural zoned piece of property, that it is. And that's essentially, and again, these Wood Miser is headquarters is in the southeast in my district, and the mills that we're talking about are what they would call agricultural mills. If you go down to the Ag Expo, it's what you'll see down at the Ag Expo, next to the tractors and the balers and such as that. So it is also considered an agricultural product, but I think it's also, there's no way you could buy a piece of commercial, rent a piece of commercial land in an industrial park and do this. The volume and the scale just is not economically viable to do that. So that would essentially not allow this activity to occur.
Okay, we're gonna have another question. Chairman Gunner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, so I'm trying to picture how this works.
Yes.
I know in sawmills you got a lot of logs laying around, you got a lot of scrap also laying around. Does this deal with any of that part of it, or is that what these local jurisdictions do when they stop people from doing that?
So on an agricultural zone piece of property, essentially what this bill addresses, I would say, is scale. So these mills, yes, they do make sawmill, they do make dust, and they do make wood, but we're operating a trailer-mounted piece of equipment that's loaded and unloaded by hand. So essentially, the volume isn't there. And I know there's sawmills, and then there's sawmills, and your typical industrial sawmill operates on three-phase power. It's permanently based. You have mechanized equipment to onload and offload the logs as well as the waste. We're talking about a scale of a person putting logs on a piece of equipment and removing wood. So it's not capable of really that much in the way of waste. And I guess to further address the problem, the land that this is on is agricultural zone, so it is larger acreage as well. This doesn't allow it to be put in a subdivision on residential property.
Right. Okay.
Are there any other questions? I see one, Representative Donahue.
Thank you, Chairman. I've used a couple of portable sawmills to build cabins up in Tennessee on my property, and we brought it in. We had the logs brought in. We did and cut the lumber as we needed to build. With that, it was up to me on my property to clean up and do everything after we were done, and then we could move the sawmill away. We've done that 3 or 4 times, worked out really great. However, this wouldn't affect anything to do with that. If it's on my property, I still have the right to bring that in, and I own, 85 acres. One of the other tracts was 10 acres, and I think agriculture is considered 10 acres or bigger, is what I understand. But would that affect me continuously doing that if I decided to do it again?
If your local government decided that if your land was not zoned agriculture and your local government decided to restrict it, they could if it's not on agricultural zone property. And that's just in the Georgia Constitution, zoning belongs to the local government. So we're not changing that. But if they have determined a piece of property to be a farmland, then we consider this an agricultural practice that can occur there.
Thank you.
Okay, this is hearing only today, and is everybody on the committee familiar with these little portable sawmills? I hope nobody in Crawford County is looking at this, because my neighbor has one of these in his yard, and he has probably 2 acre, and he's been doing it for probably 15 years with his little wood miser, and I've never thought anything about it. It really doesn't affect noise, sound, anything. He just does it as a sort of a hobby. But anyway, for whatever that's worth, they're really pretty minor unless somebody scales one up a lot bigger than what I've seen. But
and a note on that: in most places, you can mill wood wherever you want to. And in my county, you could put this. And there is a fellow that has one in his yard. Essentially, it's a home business, and he produces. I think for pallets. I think is what he does. He's been doing it for years, and that county doesn't care.
Okay. Thank you for this. We, in fact, the author of the bill will be looking for another committee meeting this week. I'm looking committee members for possibly a time on Friday morning to have another committee meeting that maybe bring back to look at some other bills that we have going here this morning as well. So be thinking what we need to do with this bill. Chairman Camp, you ready? HB 331 and LC 443007, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
007. So I'm thankful to be here today, and thank you for this opportunity. I apologize for being late. I was in another committee presenting 2 bills, so thank you for your grace in that. This bill specifically seeks to stop individuals from selling dogs, cats, and rabbits in parking lots. That's the whole extent of this bill. There are a number of individuals who are unfortunately bringing animals from out of state or from deplorable situations to Georgia, and they are selling these animals with very little background. There's very little medical records for these animals, and if there's a problem with the dog, you're never going to find these people 9 times out of 10. Now, this bill specifically carves out, and I've spoken with the Department of Ag, they are going to probably add some things to this bill, so if we could hear this again, I would greatly appreciate it, because it might slightly change. But they had no issues with the fact that you can sell animals at your home, at your business. You can sell them at a veterinarian's office. You can sell them at the sheriff's department or the police department parking lot. Any of these, you can sell animals at any of these places, exchange money for your animals. But you cannot do it in a parking lot or alongside a road or at a pop-up flea market type situation unless you have a license from the Department of Agriculture. There are breeders who do have licensure. They, they go and they make sure that they can be inspected by the Department of Agriculture. They have many animals and they do a wonderful job. This bill is not targeting them in any way because they're able to do it. If my dog and, someone else's dog fall in love and have a litter of puppies and we take them to the vet and get their dew claws done and their tails snipped and all that, there's nothing stopping me or the other party from selling those animals if we do it at my home, their home, the veterinarian's office, one of our businesses, police department, or the sheriff's department. So there's a lot of actually safety involved because you're doing it in a public place that, quite honestly, someone's going to know you. Your home excluded from that. So if you didn't feel comfortable with someone coming to your home, you certainly could go to any of these other places. Again, this is to stop the puppy mill business. There are nefarious people who bring animals into our state. They oftentimes are involved in multiple illegal activities, including money laundering. So this bill is to address that and to protect the public from buying animals that they have no ability to go back and say this animal has a genetic disorder, this animal is horribly sick, this animal has been misrepresented. And I'm open for any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman, for this bill. Representative Lewis Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for being here, Chairman Camp. Refresh my memory, didn't we hear something similar to this in the past in terms of stopping the puppy mill in the parking lot?
I believe that we have, and there are laws in place now. This one goes a little bit further. It actually has some teeth when you're arrested, or not arrested, but when you're fined for doing so. The first offense is $100. And this is not stopping someone who has a box of kittens, because this is only when consideration takes place. So if you have a box of kittens and you go to Piggly Wiggly and you say anyone who wants one of these pretty little kittens, as long as you're not accepting consideration, you're not going to be fined. But when you start taking money, that's where the issue starts coming into play. I'm sure we've all seen on social media these rehoming fees. That's consideration. So, but yes, we have heard this multiple times.
Thank you.
Representative Camp, along those lines, the $100 first offense, $250 and $500. Personally, I think that's kind of low. How much do these animals sell for, or trade for? I mean, is that going to be a deterrent if this bill were to pass?
Well, it certainly could be. The Department of Agriculture, when I spoke with them, they are interested in striking lines 47 through 51. They don't want it to be considered to be one offense. So if you've sold 3 dogs, they want it to be 100, 250, and 500. And quite honestly, the dogs sell sometimes for $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, especially the designer dogs. And you know, people have DNA tests done on dogs after the fact and find out, you know, they bought a Labradoodle, but they didn't buy a Labradoodle, they bought a lot of stuff.
You got another question, Representative Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Chairman Camp. I guess my question centers around limitation, because if you're able, a normal person that's backyard breeding without a license can sell just as many animals as someone who is a certified breeder. I mean, I don't see where there's any cap or any type of restrictions for those individuals, because they're operating like a business without the business acumen.
Well, and that is a consideration, and this bill really does not address that. But again, if you're going to someone's home repeatedly, or a veterinarian's office repeatedly, or the sheriff's department repeatedly, and you don't have a business license, eventually, I would assume eventually someone would notice and say, wait a second, Beth Camp's been down there a lot selling. She sold like 4,000 dogs this year. Someone's going to notice when people start having litter after litter after litter. And there are requirements for different municipalities, as pointed out by Representative Carter. There are, you know, if you're breeding animals, oftentimes your municipality could require you to have a business license. And the Department of Agriculture, of course, there are stipulations and regulations regarding animals in that capacity, and this does not impact this in any way, any law that's currently in place with the Department of Agriculture.
Thank you.
Chairman Gunner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, back when I was a young fella, probably an early teenager, I raised AKC German Shepherds and sold them, and we had several litters that we did that. Would this affect somebody doing that? Would I need to get a license if I'm a kid doing this?
No, it should not impact you on that. And actually, we carved out, I didn't mention it, but you can actually, lines 32 through 34, it actually says that you can, if you're at a sanctioned National Breeding Club show or association, 4-H program, or agricultural exhibition. So if you brought those registered dogs to a 4-H event, for example, you would be able to sell those animals.
Okay, but if I sold them from my home, which is what I did,
you would not have a problem.
Okay.
This, as long as you're at your home, your business, the veterinarian's office, sheriff's department, police department, or one of the breeding clubs, associations, 4-H, or similar agricultural exhibition, you would be absolutely fine. It's just if you were selling them in the Walmart parking lot, or if you were at a flea market selling them, that could be problematic, unless you had unless you had a breeder's license from the Department of Agriculture.
Okay, thank you very much.
I see no other questions. So here it on, maybe we can consider this again at our next meeting.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank
Chairman.
you for bringing this. All right, Representative Franklin. Sorry for the mix-up. I think we've got, do we have copies? Do the members have copies now? Oh, okay. My great intern Butler Matthews will be passing these out, and we can get those done. Actually, while he's doing that, we will have two more bills to consider today. Representative Meeks is here with HB 424 that's in here, and you should also have HB 495 in your packs too that we're going to try to hear first time today as well. So has everybody got a copy?
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I could tell you why we switched to this supplement.
Okay. All right. Mike's yours.
So my original thought in this effort was to put this endeavor under the Secretary of State, because that's where you register for companies and LLCs, and that was my thinking of it. But once we dug into it, we didn't want to kick the apple cart over and create a whole new process or a whole new database and system that some other that they would have to do when we already have one in place. So with this supplement, it basically doesn't change anything that's already established. Already, the process is already in place, and they're currently doing. Doesn't change the money. Doesn't change anything that's already happening, except for one feature is that once they do process this trade name in the counties, they take that information and send it to the clerk's corporate authority, so that outside people, in the state, can go in there and find it.
So this bill is really about transparency. You
That's
register in one county, and it's a database.
And efficiency, because otherwise you'd have to go to 159 counties to try to search your trade name or you're doing business as, and this way you just go to one source.
Okay. I see no questions. Any questions for the author? I see one, Chairman Leverett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the one other thing I do notice here is you are requiring that we use a pre-printed form prepared by the clerk's authority to do this. And that is not currently in law now, is it?
You want to speak to that?
The clerk's authority does not create the form right now. This was put in there so that if it's done electronically, excuse me, through the clerk's authority website, they can set up the form properly. It won't be an issue for anyone.
So you do it by filling out a matrix on the computer instead of sending in a paper form like
Yes,
we
sir.
currently do? Okay.
Yes.
I know some clerks do require you use their form, which I have a little bit of a heartburn about, just to let you know where I stand on that. But I understand what you're talking about here. You're basically trying to institutionalize it so that you could do this electronically from one place and then have it accessible all over. You wouldn't have to go check every county.
Correct, and you would have the standardized form that you'd like to see.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
okay, all right. Well, on that condition, I think I could accept your form. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Vice Chairman Campbell.
Proper time, I'd like to make a motion to pass.
That is in order. So I have a motion to do pass. Do I have a second? Got a second. Any other discussion on LC 44299 2S. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Motion second. All in favor say aye. Opposed? None. Motion passes. On the rules.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, be sure to get the proper signature from me and at the end of this meeting.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Chairman Meeks, you ready? Yeah, why don't you go there? Be good. And we do have some people to sign up to speak to this bill. But Chairman Meeks, that's a mighty big notebook.
Little light reading, Mr. Chairman. May take us all.
But I'm sure it's very warranted. The mic is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and colleagues, members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to bring to you today House Bill 424, LC number 600082. One of the things I'd like to go ahead and point out, Mr. Chairman, on line 36, we have a scrivener's error there, and that should be section 136 as it refers to the U.S. Code, and particularly the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, and Rodenticide Acts. Well, we need to make that one correction there on line 132. It should be section 135 instead of 136. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, this bill is about tools. It's about tools that our agricultural community uses and tools for the future. Many of you know that as we continue in our largest industry in our state, we continue to get squeezed on what we are able to use to produce the most abundant, most affordable, safest food supply of anywhere in the world. This particular bill itself, if you look on page 2, starting on line 36, let's start at 33. What we're doing here is we're saying that any pesticide that is registered with the commissioner or the Environmental Protection Agency, which is the lead authority, pursuant to rules of the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, Rodenticide Act, has displaying a label that has been approved by the EPA, again, the reigning authority, and registering the pesticide is consistent with most human risk assessments performed under FIFRA, shall be deemed a sufficient warning label for the purposes of any action they commence. So how did we get here? Well, thanks to the West Coast, state of California, made a move to require the manufacturers of glyphosate-based products to include on their label the words and the warning known to cause cancer. Well, the way it actually ended up, and all of the where it originated from, was really from a single study that was conducted by the International Agency on Cancer Research, which is a subgroup of a French WHO organization. Now, the state of California used one study based on one organization to make this determination to require manufacturers of glyphosate-based products to include the warning may cause cancer. This here, ladies and gentlemen, as the chairman mentioned, is the leading regulatory assessments on glyphosate safety. So this is every study, and this is one volume of 2, understand. This is every study that has been done on glyphosate-based products, i.e. Roundup, that has deemed the product to be safe. It's a tool that is used in the production of agriculture. I personally spray Roundup. I know I have some other colleagues on the committee that purchases Roundup in large quantities as well. It's an important tool in the production of agricultural products, particularly in cotton. It's used as burn down. As many of you probably know, glyphosate-based products are a contact mode of action, which means it has to be sprayed directly onto the plant in order to affect it. You probably also know that glyphosate does not volatilize, which means wherever you spray it is where it stays. So the and further action in California, the lawsuit was actually overturned by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, indicating that, and I quote, that the International Agency on Cancer Research stands essentially alone in determining that glyphosate is probably a carcinogenic to humans. Federal regulators have all concluded that glyphosate does not pose a carcinogenic risk. This legislation does not provide any immunity whatsoever to the manufacturers of glyphosate-based products. It is simply a labeling issue, and if the EPA, the sole authority on approving labels, and/or the Commissioner of Agriculture of our state deem the label and approve the label that all information has been therefore included, then manufacturers don't have to include any additional information. Mr. Chairman, that's the bill. Members of the committee, happy to answer any questions you might have. I know we have a couple of other folks who would like to make some comments as well.
You do have a couple of questions here. Representative Donahue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is basically Roundup you're talking about, correct?
That is correct.
And on that, I call my wife the Roundup lady. She loves to use it. I don't. But with it, how does that, when it lists, is it, I'm a beekeeper, is it going to harm the bees if you're doing all the pasture land around? Because we spray something called Durable, I think, that says it is safe for bees, and we know bees pollinate. And I was just curious about that because I understand Roundup when we do our fence rows and everything, what we're trying to accomplish. I just wanted to kind of make sure if that's listed that it would be harmful to pollinators or bees or something like that, or how that would be listed.
Well,
or how
in terms of your pasture, if you spray your pasture with Roundup, you ain't going to have a pasture.
No, the fence line would be the Roundup.
Well, it doesn't. I would say no, it doesn't, because Roundup doesn't volatilize and move. Wherever you spray that product on the ground is where it's going to stay.
Right.
It's not going to move unless your beehives are right there on it. It's a herbicide instead of a pesticide. The reference to pesticide in the bill and within the FIFRA and RFRA, pesticide is all encompassing of herbicides, fungicides as well. But the Roundup is going to spray, is going to stay wherever it lands. So my sense is we have bees on the farm. I don't personally care for them, but my sense is it would not affect them in that way.
Thank you.
We've got one other question, Chairman Levy. Let's hold off. We've got a couple of speakers I think might be able to answer some questions, or you've got something for the author. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't catch the amendment you were referencing when you.
Yes, sir. On Mr. Chairman, on page 32.
Line 32.
Line 32. It reads section 135. That should be 136.
Thank you.
Which is the reference back to the FIFRA Act.
RFRA. Thank you.
Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We've got Elizabeth Burns with Modern Ag Alliance here that I'd like to come and make a little presentation, if she could, right here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As was mentioned, I do believe brevity is an art form, and I know we're on the clock, so I'll keep it high level. My name is Elizabeth Burns Thompson here on behalf of Modern Ag Alliance. We are a coalition of 90-plus agricultural organizations all across the country. Many of our partners here in Georgia are actually sitting behind me as well, Agribusiness, Farm Bureau, and the fruit and vegetable growers, and proud to stand here today also as a product of a farm myself, and so personally can attest to the evolution of agriculture throughout my family's time and my own. But I think the conversation here today really is for those of us that are from agriculture know that we can't control the weather, and as much as we try, we can't control the markets. What we can control is the rules and the regulatory process that we were put within. That is within our hands. And so what this bill does is provide certainty. It codifies the federal law further to say that the label is the law, and a company that is following the label should not have the opportunity to be sued for being void of that. Simple as that. I have way more words we have to put into that. Absent putting this forward, though, we're presenting more uncertainty in what is already a very uncertain profession, actually. We're looking at what does that mean then? If we take tools out of the toolboxes of farmers, there are numbers of studies of what that looks like in terms of the cost of production, so the cost added to that farmer's bottom line. That hits not only the farmers and the farm families, the communities that they reside in, but every one of our dinner plates at the end of the day, regardless of where you sit. So stand here today strongly in support of this. Happy to take any questions, and I'll also mention we do have a toxicologist that is very well versed in the specifics of pesticide registrations.
Any questions, Ms. Burns? I'd also like Dr. Lewin to come, and I think he's expert to speak on this as well from Crop Life.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your attention. Happy to be here. Hi, my name is Dr. Craig Llewellyn. I'm a principal scientist with Exponent, and here representing the Southern Crop Production Association and Crop Life America. Just a little background on me. My doctoral and postdoctoral research in pharmacology and toxicology, and it's humbling to admit that I've spent the last 30 or so years working in the industry and state government, so I don't feel like I'm that old, but I guess I am. So with that, I know that you've had a number of questions. We've heard about FIFRA being the law of the land, and that is indeed the case in terms of the U.S. Government, in terms of the way that pesticides, including herbicides, are required to be registered. And that process is a very thorough and comprehensive process that requires a lot of data and a lot of information that includes any potential aspects of harm to humans, wildlife, plants, surface water, and groundwater. So if you have questions around the aspects of impacts of these products to all of that, the goal of FIFRA is really to protect humans and the environment and everything that's within it, target organisms and non-target organisms. So the processes are laid out. The data requirements are actually codified within the Code of Federal Regulations in 40 CFR Part 158. And as you heard, also that FIFRA really is looking to protect humans at the most sensitive endpoint. So the EPA is doing a risk assessment associated with all the known risks at the time. Science does change. However, once a pesticide is registered, that registration is not dormant. It's a living entity. So as new science comes together, the EPA is mandated to identify and reevaluate that science, essentially codified, mandated every 15 years to touch every pesticide, but also at any time that anything comes to available in the private, public, or government sector, EPA can call in data from the registrants of these products to explain the science as it is today. So not only looking at the science that may have been used in the registration, but all as science evolves. So I think that's an important piece, that the registrations are not static. They are living, and they continue to live as long as that product is registered. With that said, there's a number of provisions within FIFRA that are important. It's important that registrants cannot hide or fully comply with information requests from the FDA, so that they could face criminal prosecution and jail time and monetary fines. The other aspect I think is really important is that we heard there's a partnership between the state and the federal government. So the US EPA is responsible for the safety and the determination of what the use instructions are for pesticides and herbicides, and also the label. So EPA is required to understand that label, make sure that the label contains all the pertinent information for safety of humans and animals and plants that are potentially exposed. And then
Dr. Llewellyn, are you pretty close to finishing?
I am, very much.
Okay, thank you.
So just the fact that EPA is the federal, every state has the ability to determine what pesticides are used within the borders of its state. That's an important piece. And then the most important piece is that FIFRA contains a preemptive provision, and this is what happened with California, is that within FIFRA, EPA has the authority over the pesticide label and only the authority over the pesticide label and packaging, and the states may not enact labeling or packaging standards that are in addition to or different from federal standards, except those that are equivalent to or consistent with federal standards. So it's very clear that EPA controls the label, and manufacturers cannot add anything to the label unless the EPA approves that label.
Thank you for that information. We've got a couple other people that want to speak to the bill, maybe come to the podium mic. Brian Tolar with the Georgia Urban Ag Council.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know we're short on time. Brian Tolar, Georgia Urban Ag Council. Our membership is made up of the landscape industry. So that includes those that are landscape professionals, but also turf grass, sod growers, and the nursery sector. This is an $11 billion industry. And what we're talking about is, while it is a product that is vital for our farming community when we think of our row crops, but it also encompasses much more. The landscape sector is a big piece of that, but every one of y'all sitting in front of me is also impacted, as was referenced by Representative Donahue with the Roundup lady, his bride. It's the same situation. These products are in every one of your homes, your neighbors' homes, your barns, your storage buildings. This is a product that you get at Home Depot or Lowe's every day. And glyphosate is the one that's being talked about. It's every product. Everything is subject to being impacted. If this continues to move forward, every product labeled by EPA through FIFRA, the legal process, as we just outlined very thoroughly, will be impacted. This is the beginning. This is why we can't have nice things. Since 1947, FIFRA has been effective. We would encourage you to continue to support the effectiveness of that program, support the process of EPA, and support the products that are in the marketplace for use by all end users, including our farm community and our landscapers. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Brian, for that. Any questions? Got a couple more. Adam Bellflower, Georgia Farm Bureau, speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. My name is Adam Bellflower with Georgia Farm Bureau. I just want to get up here briefly and voice our support for this legislation and the author for bringing it. They put a lot of hard work into it. I think it's a great bill. We've talked a lot about EPA labels today and the labels that are on pesticides. I won't go into detail right now in the interest of time. I did bring with me a label for a common use pesticide on farms and cotton production. One of the things that I've learned in conversations is a lot of people don't realize the detail these labels include. So if any of y'all after the meeting just want to take a glance at this, I'd be happy to walk through with you the detail that EPA and the instructions that they provide to farmers about how to use these products. But again, in the interest of time, I won't go into all that right now. Just want to say we support this legislation and appreciate y'all considering it.
Flower, got any questions of Farm Bureau? Next signed up is Will Bentley, Georgia Agribusiness Council.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Will Bentley of Georgia Agribusiness Council, and we are fully supportive of this bill. It's nothing more important to our industry, so we appreciate Chairman Meeks bringing it, and hopefully y'all can vote favorably for the bill. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman Meeks, for this bill. Had a lot of support for this bill. And it's my understanding nobody's against this bill. In fact, I think the Senate vetted this bill in the last few days. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
And in fact has passed it out of their committee. And so are there any other questions or motions on this bill? I think they like your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee for your favorable consideration.
So I think I heard a motion to do pass. Got a second? One minute. Huh? So we do have a motion and a second for the bill, but we do need an amendment change. So you have pointed out that change that number on line.
Right, line 32. Right. From section 135 to 136.
Okay. So I need a motion and a second for the amendment. Got a motion, got a second. All in favor for the amendment? Say aye. Opposed? Okay, amendment passes. All in favor do pass for this bill, say aye. Opposed? Good job, Chairman Meeks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I know it's a late hour. I've got one other bill I would like to hear this morning. If you would take the time, it's a hearing only, and I'm going to turn this over to Chairman, my co-chair here, Vice Chair, Joe Campbell, and I'll go to the podium. House Bill 495. Does everybody have it in their folder, LC 443049? And this bill came about in the last few days. It is simple bill. We have a wonderful Center for Rural Prosperity and Innovation located down in Tifton. Dr. Bridges has been operating this center and doing great work for a lot of our rural towns and counties, and very proud and excited about the great work he's done for them. It's really made a difference in a lot of communities, and want to continue this center. In the past, when it was set up, and I'm not sure, I think our Terry England, when he was appropriations chairman, through the work with the speaker in our Rural Development Council at the time, envisioned this center and funded it, and has been operating probably, some of you might know this, I was trying to figure out, probably 6 years or more, maybe. And so it's been attached to ABAC and USG. And so now we're through some conversations with many people in the building next door, want to move this center from USG attached to the Department of Agriculture. And that's all this bill does. You look at line 4, and Lead Council drew this up the other day: transfer the Center for Rural Prosperity and Innovation to the Department of Agriculture. It's got some other references. Everything else in the bill is the exact same as the year it was set up here and passed through the House. All this other language is exactly the same, did not change. It's got a board, it's got a director, it's got rules and regulations, 6 members appointed by the governor. None of that is any different or changed in how it's been operating. Well, we don't envision any other change other than you have to attach this thing for funding and benefits. This only has, I think, 3 employees right now. They really leverage the funding we put in the budget. I think $1.5 million, leverage that, pay the salaries, but really help these small cities and communities not able to do a lot of the grant funding and those type of special issues that they are faced with. So the board appointed by the governor, 6 members, will see that, and you can just read through the details of the center, but none of that's changing. Trying to keep it simple, just trying to keep this center going and funded. It's in our budget, and that's what this bill does. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Number 23, Representative Meeks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, thanks for bringing the bill. As you and I have had many conversations about the Center for Rural Prosperity and what it has, what it's accomplished since its inception, and the need to continue to do great work in rural Georgia, both with the center and the other partners in our state. So thanks for bringing the bill at the proper time. I'd make the move do pass.
Thank you, Chairman Meeks. I know you've been very involved with this and with the center. Thank you for your work and involvement on it firsthand as well.
Any other questions? Okay, we have a motion to do pass in a second, I believe. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Thank you very
Thank
much.
You, Chairman.
Appreciate it. I know it's a late hour. Thank y'all for your patience this morning. We got a lot of great legislation passed. Be on the lookout for a possible meeting on Friday. Don't know if that can happen, but meeting adjourned. Thank you.